meeting to order at about 12:14. And Sue, you want to do the attendance then?
Board Member Yankovic.
Present.
Board Member Reister.
Present.
Board Member Doyle.
Present.
Board Member Larkin.
Here.
Board Member Lonick.
Here.
Board Member McClure. Here. Chair Reagan.
Here.
And board members Springer and DeVore are absent.
And we need a motion to approve the absences.
So-
Okay.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Rita? And then any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting from August 10th. Approval of the agenda, excuse me. Brian, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And now we'll approval of the minutes for the previous meeting.
So moved.
That Mike? Or Rita, is there a second?
Second.
April? And any discussions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Treasurer's report.
Current balance is $267,362. By the next time you meet, the TIFA revenue should be around $395,000 for the summer season. And I also wanted to mention the capital outlay item is D. Agostino Builders. That's for the cable building improvements.
Okay, would you say that again about the total TIFA revenue?
Next time, they should all be posted, and it'll be about $395,000.
Okay, so is that total or that's what we'll see as a line
No,
item?
that's total summer, and then in the winter, you'll see, the grand total for the year will be about $450,000. So by the next time we meet, you'll see $395,000, where the $40,000 is now.
It'll be a line item,
Yes.
okay. Sue, are your monthly ending balances going back in history readily available? Are they, I know they're available, but
Yeah,
is it an easy thing for you to pull up if you were to make a spreadsheet of them?
of the TIFA revenue?
No, of the ending balance. Ending balance of the financial statement.
Sure.
Not asking you to do that yet. It's just
Okay.
something I was thinking about.
Okay, need a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Dean, is there a second? Support. Brian, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Public comments for items not on the agenda. Speak now or forever hold your peace. No public comments? Old business. Downtown plan, further discussion, strategic. Any update on that, Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to the board about that briefly. Obviously, some of us went on our tour last month, and it kind of got me into thinking. To my understanding, we've never actually approved the downtown plan. I'm correct on that, correct?
Yeah.
So, my understanding is that this was a project that was enacted initially with DDA and Williams and Works, and now that things have maybe died down a little bit, I might actually be able to get some work done. I was hoping to maybe we could start as a board, maybe start considering getting that plan finalized, which we probably would have to revisit some things on there because of there's been some movement with some things in the downtown, and thought maybe it might be a good idea to re-engage Williams and Works and the board maybe at the next month meeting to make any revisions to the plan. Hopefully we can probably at some point after that approve the downtown plan, and then eventually whatever we do, we probably have to also revise our TIF plan to do that as well. So I'm just throwing that out to the board. It's something that's been sitting there, and I know they gave us a presentation, but I
I don't think the board had an opportunity to digest it all
Sure.
and talk, what do we want to incorporate or accept, and what things wouldn't work, and I don't know off the top of my head if that include some of those Main Street bump outs and stuff that were not real receptive to some of the board members, and
Mhm.
so those are some of the things I don't think we really,
Sure.
got our arms around and could really,
Wasn't there a plan to make this one
yeah,
way?
one way, and, yeah,
Because there were some cool things that I thought made a lot of sense.
right,
Then things kind of broke apart here in town.
Right.
We dropped it.
right,
So
Some
we
people
really
don't.
haven't hashed it out at all.
right.
I think we probably need to bring it back.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be good at a board meeting or a strategic meeting to have, if we did, because I almost picture something like that taking longer than lunch hour. That's comfortable for my,
Yeah, why don't maybe what we do is maybe I sit down with Rich, myself, Dave Austin, we'll sit down with him, and then we can work, we, at least, if anything, we report back to the board next month, maybe we can set up some sort of strategic planning meeting, something of that nature.
and even in have that, I'd have to go back to my archives and look up that, if we could have a fresh
Yeah,
print, so we can kind
'Cause I-
of review it before the meeting.
because I know there's been some things that even the council's been interested in that aren't even in the downtown plan. For example, the big thing that they're talking about right now is a splash pad.
Right,
And the location that would probably be somewhere in the downtown, and then obviously with the fair leaving, that's another
right,
thing we need to discuss as well. So, and obviously the park board's gonna weigh in on that as well, but, I think it's probably a good idea to start moving forward with that. That's why I thought maybe it would be a good idea if we engage Williams and Works, and then we report next month, and then we start putting the ball rolling to get that finally put in place.
good, yeah.
Okay.
Any other feedback from the board on that? Better recollection than me at all, or, no? Okay. Don't have to make any motions on that at all. New business, Christmas budget, everyone got that in their packet. Liz, you wanna update the board on any Christmas budget items or plans for that?
I'm looking at this letter. It's all quite correct on there of what's going on, but just as a refresher, the shovel is closed to the public, so therefore Santa will be in what I fondly refer to as the head end, and we'll have to come up with another name for that. But we've made some improvements over the summer to that building, adding a door, and they put some electric in there. There's a few other things that I think have to be finished, but that's where we plan to put Santa and the cookie room this year. So other than that, really nothing has changed, and we are requesting $64.50 from the DDA for Christmas this year.
Liz, what did we do last year?
$6,200.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by April. Something on the tip of my tongue, I was gonna mention, I just wanna, as far as the discussion, recognize some of the other people at River Valley Credit Union and the Light Power, some of the things that they do. I don't know if you want to mention that on there too, some of the other sponsors that donate some of their services, or not maybe donate it, but the value on what they do.
Right, I mean, we do have an awful lot of people that put a lot of time into it. The photography, we're working on that because we did lose modern photography, and we do have a chamber member that's probably going to step up to the plate for that. Kim Feenster photography, and Bruce Stahl is another one. River Valley Credit Union might step down, we're just trying to work all the details out, but regardless, they give a ton of time, and it costs their businesses quite a bit to do the photography part of it. Arctic Heating and Cooling, they always donate the hot dogs for the Friday night, so that's a donation. We give them away, that sort of thing. So, and then our volunteers. And all of the Santa visits are adopted by a nonprofit or a business, and they provide the cookies for that night and the workers to work it. So we have a lot of volunteers that go into the Christmas festivities.
Okay. Any other discussion? The motion by Brian and second by April. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. The only other thing, maybe new business, anything you wanted to mention about the Fenton tour at all, Mike, at all?
Sure. What day was that? I can't remember the day. We went, it was on Friday, I know that. We went, a number of us went to Fenton, took a tour of what I had been involved with in my previous position. And one of the things that, there was a number of us that were about, it was Cliff went, Jim went, Greg went, Rich went, Susie went, Jeff Phillips, Jim Hodges, and Alan go? No, he didn't go, that was right when it happened, that's right. But what we did was I took them basically through, we basically took them through, it took them 25 years basically to redevelop the downtown. And basically the majority of the growth has really developed in the last in the last 7 years, even when the economy tanked. And we basically kind of talked about all of the infrastructure improvements that we did. We talked about the some of the development stuff, but what we really focused on when we did that development was everything was based on placemaking, creating the environment that you wanted to have for your downtown district. That was the primary focus. And then the other component of that was this was something that the community had wanted for many, many years. And what we talked about was how we had to get everyone on board in the right seats of the bus, and so forth. So we basically we went through that component, but then we took a nice walking tour of the downtown, couple-hour walking tour. A lot of when you walk through the aesthetics, a lot of the recommendations that we had when we hired Dan Burden, who I've talked about, a lot of those recommendations that he made, we put into our streetscape when we did our streetscape. And what I kept trying to convey to the people who went was, you have to understand that 3 years ago, none of this was here. It's all happened. I mean, it kind of all happened at once, but it took a long time getting to that point. And I think the message is there's a couple things. One, we don't have the money that the Fenton DDA has. They capture $1.7, $1.8 million a year. So we're not going to be able to facilitate development like they did in Fenton, because quite frankly we did a lot of different things that the DDA Act allows us to do. However, there's debate as to whether or not we can technically do it, but I can say it worked. The other thing is, though, even though they capture more revenue, it doesn't mean that there's not things that we can't do to improve our downtown, infrastructure-wise, marketing-wise, aesthetic-wise. One of the biggest things that they did in Fenton and that we can do here, and I strongly urge the board to consider this, is sculptures. We can rent sculptures annually from this. There's a company that does these all over the state. They do it all over the Midwest, and for like $12,000 a year, they'll come in and they'll put sculptures in your downtown in places that you want them, and you get to select them. And I know the people who went, they saw them, and I can tell you that they've been very popular, and they've drawn people to the downtown. People come to the downtown actually when those sculptures come in place. They come to look at sculptures, and they will go to your businesses. They've done it, since I've been in where I was. So there's things that you can do. I think that's what I try to convey from from the visit, and just kind of wanted to, I didn't really want to show up and say, this is what I did. That wasn't the intention, but I wanted to get people to understand that there's things you can do. And I thought, everyone I talked to thought it was a really good, positive feedback from the trip.
If I could just make a comment, being on the trip, those were the two big takeaways I saw down there. The art was amazing, you know, and that's a relatively low cost. Maybe the DDA picks that up. The other thing that was really neat about their downtown, they had these huge flowering, similar to what Rita does in front of her shop, but even bigger. East Grand Rapids does them when you pull in by the stadium there. And a thought that I had was maybe we get businesses to sponsor them, and you get 8 or 10 of those through the downtown, or a dozen, and find people that it's in front of their business, they're willing to sponsor it. That doesn't add cost to the city, but it really helped beautify that down there, I thought, a lot. It just a little bit of greenery. I mean, they get some big flowering things, and I'm sure it's nothing, no strikes against, you know, business owners that try to do their own, but these are professionally maintained by florists, and they're all very similar and unique, and it was really, I thought, impressive. So those are two big takeaways there, was the art sculptures, and I can see that, you know, making Lowell a destination is what we've done lately, and what I think we need to continue to do. But the sculptures and a little bit of the flowers, and maybe get some businesses to volunteer to, I don't know if it'd be a couple $100 a thing to take care of it for the summer, or what those would be, but that might be a way to spread the cost around and not have it on the city's back. But thanks for taking us there, Mike.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about that is the irrigation. One of the things we did, and for those who didn't go, is one of the things we didn't want to do, we did not want the city to be involved in hand watering these baskets. We didn't want that. It's too cumbersome, it's too costly, it didn't. So when we actually did the streetscape project, what we ended up doing was we ran irrigation lines underneath the sidewalk, and then we ran them right up the light poles. And I'll be honest with you, I was against it. I didn't like the idea. I fought it, and I was wrong. And it worked out very well, and I'm glad we did it. And eventually, if we ever redo the streetscape downtown, I would strongly urge that as well, to have irrigation with hanging baskets. I would strongly urge that for the price it costs to do that. It's really, at the end of the day, if you added it to the construction, it wouldn't even be nearly what we paid for it, because we added it as a change order. So just things to think about as you go forward. I know we're talking about with the riverboat, with the showboat, with the Riverwalk area, we're looking at making enhancements to that as well with building a new boat, and that would be a good test place to try this as we move forward.
One area they really look cool is on the bridges, and since we have two sitting there, they were really stable, and they just sat on the railing of the bridge. I wish I had taken some pictures, but they looked really neat there. One thing I took away, and I'm seeing it happen in Lowell since we had the new restaurant. Restaurants draw people, because Fenton had, what, 4 or 5 that were very, very popular. And I'm just seeing it since the big boiler opened, the amount of foot traffic on this end of the street and on the whole of Main Street has amped up now, because we have the brewery at the other end, and Flat River Grill and Main Street Inn, and now down here, and people are walking a whole lot more than they ever were since I've been here.
Two things that this downtown, one thing this downtown has that Fenton didn't have is retail. We have a strong retail base down here, which Fenton is starting to get, but there's been a couple of successful retail entities in the downtown, but they're starting to get it now. They've never had that, and you need to, you need to focus on having a strong, obviously you need to have restaurants and retail, but you also need people living in your downtown. And you're starting to get that now. I anticipate there might be some opportunities with that here very soon, but the key is having all 3 of those entities really to have, you need to have people live in your downtown. There's no, that was the one thing that I've talked to other cities. For example, the city of Brighton, when I was in Fenton, the city of Brighton was envy of us, and their downtown was farther ahead than ours. But they were envious of us because when we redeveloped, we incorporated residential living in our downtown. And what it's done is, okay, we have the new construction builds downtown, but what it's also done is forced the property owners who had residential above their first floor space. They're starting to make the investment. You're starting to see it. You were starting to see it that those property owners are now starting to invest in those second floors. We don't have rental rehab or anything like that. We didn't participate in those programs when I was in Fenton, and there's issues with that here. But they were able. The property owners were able to start making that investment. And when you start having those positive successes in your downtown, people will make that investment. They will, because basically it gets to a point where you're keeping up with the Joneses, and that's what you kind of have to do. You kind of have that catalyst project to happen, and then eventually everything else will kind of fall into place over time.
Okay, any other member comments? Rita? April?
No.
Cliff? Brian?
No, well,
Okay.
residents.
Next meeting, first Thursday in October. That's the first month. Okay, I don't have that calendar in front of me, but
October 5th.
October 5, okay. Okay, nothing else, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Cliff, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Stay here.